Hello everybody, it's Tanya again. We're going to talk about the lion's den, Daniel chapter 6. Excuse me, it's one of the most famous stories in the Bible. Daniel and the lion's den. I asked Jadis what she wanted me to do a study on, and this is what she wants to hear about. And I remember hearing this as a child, a passage of scriptures that tells the story of Daniel being faithful throughout this period of his life. And from a child's perspective, we are taught about how Daniel overcomes the lions in the den, but it's actually angels that came and kept the mouths of the lions closed so that they could not hurt Daniel. And he had an unwavering daily habit of praying to the Lord 3 times a day. And when the decree was signed, he continued to pray despite knowing that he would be thrown into the den. He had faith in God to deliver him. I never knew the backstory as to why he was thrown in the den to begin with. So during this lesson, I'm learning the reasoning behind it all, not just the kid version that I've always thought about. So let's see what all we can learn together. And so, chapter 6, verse 1 says, "It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom." So Darius, who was a king during that time, he set, which means appointed, 120 princes over their kingdom. And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. And so over these princes were 3 presidents, and Daniel was the first, so he was real high ranking in this kingdom. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and the princes because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So Daniel was preferred over these others because of his spirit. And don't you know that's the Holy Spirit and God all working within him? Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. So they're saying he was real righteous there. So they were jealous of him, is what I believe. They could not find any faults. Then said these men, "We shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God." And so they couldn't find any faults, so they created one. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto him, "King Darius live forever." And so they assembled together to form a decree. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. And so if any man was to pray to their God during this 30-day decree, they got thrown in the lion's den. They were wanting all the praise to go to this King Darius. "Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing that it not be changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not." So they were making this decree to where it could not be changed by any laws. "And wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree." So the king signed the decree and set the law into motion. "Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, and he did aforetime, which means beforehand. He didn't change anything he was doing. So Daniel knew what the decree said, and he did not stray from his routine. Like me, I do a Bible study a day to keep the devil away. He was praying 3 times a day. And so that's the reason I'm doing my Bible study. That's what God tells me to do. Verse 11, "Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. So they came together and found Daniel going against the decree. He was staying true to our God." Verse 12 says, Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save O thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, The thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which altereth not. So these men were asking the king about the decree. This is what we agreed upon, right? And then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. So then they tattletaled is the best thing that I can think of on him. They wanted Daniel to be thrown into the den, so they were telling on him. It says, Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Because remember, Darius loved Daniel and wanted to put him over all the kingdom, all the realm, and now they're trying to throw him in the lion's den because of this decree he signed. And so it upset the king. And anyway, he had to send for Daniel to be delivered to the lion's den. And then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, Now, O king, and the law of the Medes and the Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed. So these men made it to where the decree could not be changed and used it against King Darius on Daniel. And this sounds familiar to me in today's world and the laws that we have to follow. They make them to how they want the laws to be. But that's a whole subject for another day. 16, Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. So Daniel was cast into the lion's den, and the king said, God will deliver thee. And so he was letting Daniel know at this moment he didn't realize. I think Daniel might not have realized what God could do, but I think Darius was thinking this. Or we could look at it the other way. In the true hearts of kings, if he was a bad king, you could look at it that he was mocking him and thinking God wouldn't do it. So I looked at that both ways. You read it and figure out what you think. All right, verse 17 says, And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. And so they laid a stone at the mouth opening of the den so that he could not escape. And he was trapped in there when they did that. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. That means he didn't eat. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, so he didn't listen to music, and his sleep went from him. So the king had a bad night, is what it sounds like to me. And do you think that God was working on his conscience at that time? Yes, his sleep fled him, so that means he was bothered by all of this. Verse 19, Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of the lions. And so he got up real early and went to the lion's den to see what had happened. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? And so he was calling out to him, and he was asking Daniel if his God had delivered him from the lions. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. So Daniel responded with, O king, live forever. And Daniel knew that he would have eternal life, and the king as well. 22, My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. And so Daniel was found innocent in God's eyes, and an angel shut the lion's mouth. That's God's power and how he works to keep us safe. Verse 23 said, Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. So Daniel was brought out of the lion's den because he believed in our God. He had that faith. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions. Them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had the mastery of them, and brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. And so the men that had accused Daniel were then cast into the den along with their family. Their children and wives were thrown in them, and it says that the lions broke their bones. So don't you know that was a terrible punishment for what they had done to Daniel? Verse 25 says, Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, Peace be multiplied unto you. So peace be unto the nations and the people. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and the steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. So the God of Daniel is the living God, and he shall rule until the very end of time. And that was the new decree that this King Darius had made. And he delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So he then knew that our God works to save his people, especially this bloodline of people. And so this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. And so Daniel prospered because he was faithful even in the lion's den. So the things that we learn are faith will keep you protected. Jealous people lay traps for us and try to have us put under, but God delivers us from them. Daily habits influence your faith. Submission to God always wins in the end. And these worldly laws, we follow them to stay out of the trouble throughout day-to-day life. But if it came down to you not praying versus praying anyways, what would you do? I know my answer. I'd be praying anyway. Political power is corrupted. Modern day, we face people that do not share our same beliefs. And did Daniel care what they thought? No, he served our God without fail. And he did not do it in a private matter either. His windows were open, remember, and it was pointing out to Jerusalem, and he was on his knees praying. Praying 3 times a day may be the answer to a lot of our issues going on today. I pray continuously. I do this Bible study. I stay in the Word, and my life has significantly changed. God sends angels to protect us in our lowest moments, just like he did in the lion's den. And Daniel reached an entire kingdom of people by putting his faith in God, and he prospered because he signed that new decree and said that everyone will fear and tremble before the God of Daniel. So we may not face literal lions' dens today, meaning actually be thrown in a pit, but we face these modern day lions, the devil, who's wandering around ready to devour us. And 1 Peter 5 verse 8 says, Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. So be mindful of these people and what their jealousy can do. We are tested with a lion's den throughout our lives, just like Daniel was tested. His faith and daily habits kept him safe. And we all have to do our part so that God can do his part. You have to want a life with God, and it has to show throughout your test in life. Faithful and true will save you if you only believe in him. So build that relationship like Daniel did and walk out of the den unharmed. The devil will only harm you if you allow him to. And don't be tricked by all of these devils of today's world. Pray, be vigilant, and love the Lord. He will save you from the lion's den of this world, which the devil currently has his reign, I believe. So fight against it. Let's all walk out of the den together, united in the love of our God, the Creator. And so I want to say a happy, special little thanks to Jada. She gave me this idea today. I learned so much. I hope that y'all did too. And I can't wait until we get to meet in the clouds one day. As always, y'all have a God blessed day. Bye-bye.